Welcome to Not Like the Others, the podcast that invites you to lean into curiosity. I'm your host, Elle, and I believe that by sharing our messy and unusual stories, we can discover our shared humanity and find connection in a world that often feels increasingly disconnected. Join me and my guests as we explore our unique paths and share our experiences with adversity, mental health, relationships and parenting, technology and spirituality, and more. Today's guest is a powerhouse leader for women and their families in Colorado. She's someone I look up to and respect deeply. As a woman, activist, mother, and friend, her journey is a masterclass in resilience, from being a first-generation college grad and a finance professional to spending 5 years as a full-time mother before rising through the ranks to lead one of the state's most vital organizations, the Women's Foundation of Colorado. She's also navigating a year of devastating personal loss, losing both her mother and her sister in what are already wildly complex and challenging times for our community and country. Today, we're exploring what it means to be a woman in 2026, leading with grace and humanity, keeping a nonpartisan mission on track in a partisan world, channeling grief, rage, and determination into steady action. I am so incredibly proud to know her and honored to have her on the show today, Renee, the CEO of the Women's Foundation of Colorado. Thank you so much for being with me today, Renee. I am so honored.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you.
I even just introducing you chokes me up a little bit. And I just feel like you do have this wild sorcery about you that every time I'm in a room with you, I always get a little bit verklempt. I'm just so inspired by you. And ever since we met, gosh, what was that? Maybe 9 years ago when I first got involved with Women's Foundation, we met and you were in a different position at the time. And I just remember feeling so immediately inspired by you and everything that you do to advocate for women and their families, while also bringing such a bright light to every room you come into, and even apparently a virtual room. So I'd love to kind of introduce the audience to the Women's Foundation of Colorado as well, and this incredible organization that you're leading, so that we have a little bit of context.
Well, first, I just want to say those were some of the kindest words anyone's ever said to me. So thank you very much. It is, especially right now, it's really lovely to hear somebody talk about you in a way that maybe you don't see yourself all the time. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for your kindness and your generosity today. So I have been the CEO and president of the Women's Foundation of Colorado for over a year now, which actually isn't a lot of time, but it has been an intense time. The Women's Foundation was founded 39 years ago by an incredible group of women who were really addressing the feminization of poverty. And in these times, we hear a lot of research analysts referring to the re-feminization of poverty right now for women. And so it makes what we do at the Women's Foundation even more important. So our mission at the Women's Foundation is to ensure that we are protecting and advancing women's rights and advancing gender, racial, and economic equity throughout the state of Colorado. And we do that via direct service grant making, public policy advocacy. Our research really guides everything we do. And then, of course, the cultivation of philanthropy by and for women and the men who love us. This work is incredibly critical. It always has been, but never so more as right now. It is a really challenging time to see the rollback on DEI and to see the nervousness around aligning yourself with gender-specific missions at a time where we know women have been the cornerstone of our cultures and our economies forever. So we cannot pull back. We have to lean in.
Yeah. Just listening to you gave me chills because I remember, gosh, this must have been maybe about 9 months ago, um, when it was just before the luncheon. And you had mentioned, in the summer mixer, I think that's what it was. Yeah. That some major sponsors for the annual luncheon, had pulled out, because of the sensitivity of the DEI rollback and, federal implications for aligning themselves with a gender focused organization. And I don't know that I'll ever forget the rage that like bubbled up inside me when I heard you say that, because I think that might have also been the first moment in this administration, in this climate, where I thought, oh, like, it's coming for me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
what a privilege, I guess, even to be for it to be that long before I had that realization, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that. I think that, but it was, I think, maybe the first moment that, like, fear had hit me, where I thought, "Oh, no, how far is this gonna go?" Because it was like a material impact. Yeah, I think the Women's Foundation has always, when I moved to Denver from New York City, I thought, well, really wanna get involved. This was before I had my son. I really wanna get involved in something around women and children, and that's always been kind of the 2 guiding lights for me of, like, where I volunteer my time, where I give my money, like, that's where I wanted it to go, because I come from a family that we were poor. My mother was a
Mm-hmm.
teenager when she had me. The women in my family have survived generationally so much violence and poverty, and I know that that order is tall for me to break the cycle, and that there are still so many women who are not as privileged as I am to have the opportunities to break those cycles for their families and need that support.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's becoming clearer than ever that the protection, the thing that separates you from poverty, anyone from poverty in this economic climate at the moment, is very thin. And I'm seeing it in so many places and with so many people. Um, and so I think it just feels, like you said, so much more dire, so much more urgent, maybe than ever in my lifetime, um, to rally and and to do this work, and to support women and our communities and their families as much as we can right now, especially
Mm-hmm.
when we have this, like, weird kind of, imposing force that really wants to divide us and wants to
Yep.
keep us separated, wants to see us fighting each other, or, like,
Yeah.
distracting us.
Yes.
So that's all to say, thank you for being our fearless leader in this work in Colorado. No pressure.
Yeah. It's a privilege, honestly. It really is. We are experiencing a convergence of crises right now, right? We have seen the federal budget cuts, the freezing of funds for victim services, Medicaid, HUD have been slashed. We see the attack on our immigrant population, the shrinking resources for the LGBTQ community, the shrinking resources and the rollback of rights around reproductive care. At the center of everything are women and their families. No matter what happens in this world, war, anything, women are impacted the most in this space. So it's incumbent upon us. We are the Women's Foundation of Colorado. We have got to lean in, and we have to hold other people accountable as well. This is not the time to be proactively compliant out of fear, because the people we serve, they don't have an opportunity to sit in fear. They have to move through fear, with fear, in it, all of it, because they're just trying to survive. We know that people are not getting their health care because they're too terrified to leave their homes. We know that they cannot are getting challenged left and right around getting their citizenship um, in that process. And it's becoming more difficult instead of streamlined, right? Immigrants built this country and they make this country beautiful. It is the power that we have. Instead of like running from it, we need to embrace what that means to us, right? And then on top of it, I also think we sit in a place of privilege and philanthropy. And nobody's held us accountable, really. Community foundations are succinctly different because community holds us accountable. We are incumbent to serve the community. But a lot of private foundations, a lot of individuals are not sitting there with that same pressure. And so now's the time to double down and lean in because we have this privilege. I was at an event where we were talking with community partners, and Lincoln High School has 155 students that are not going to school right now and getting their education because they're terrified to leave their homes. They're terrified to lose their parents. They don't want to just disappear. What does that mean? They can't get the education. So that puts them on a course of poverty, even in a greater sense than somebody who hasn't. And when we see funders proactively being compliant, or individuals, a lot of individuals are freezing a little bit right now, thinking about the markets, thinking about their philanthropy, when in fact they still have the opportunity to give. They still have enough to give, right? Even more than enough to give. We have got to think about the people on the flip side of this coin who are literally risking their lives every day walking out their doors. And they don't have the opportunity to freeze.
Yeah.
You know,
going.
it is the reality. And we need to keep saying that and putting the faces to what's happening, because the impact on our state as a whole is going to be grave. If we don't support women, I don't want to get too data driven here, but a few things, get in the data, like a few things that we know, right? From the HR1 bill, from our snapshot on the status of women here in Colorado. It's so important. Like, the wage gap is persistent, right? It is significant. Childcare is at its highest right now. Spots are shrinking. CCAP is frozen. And childcare is costing almost a third of a woman's salary. A single mother often lives in poverty because of the caretaking responsibilities, right? It isn't just your child, it's your parents, it's your extended family, it's your community that you're caring for. And we are the ones that often have to opt out of the workforce, in and out. That's a loss of paycheck. That's less money in your 401k. That's less opportunity to network and build on that. And Colorado has an aging population, a significant aging population. Women are living longer than men, but when we retire, we have 65% of what they have.
Yeah.
We only have enough to meet our basic needs. We don't have enough disposable income to invest back in our economy and boost it.
Yeah.
Because and when you tie that with the fact that we are the largest consumers that drive how our economy goes.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Like, people better be concerned about the economic state of Colorado, because the math is simple. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Start investing in women.
You bring up so many incredible points that they're not even opinion. Like you said, it's data. It's the data. And I think so many people really don't understand that women control so much of the spending power, not only in Colorado, but like nationally, globally. And for existing in a capitalist society that is broken in so many ways,
Yeah.
like, you would think that would be like look, if money's king in this country and women are the ones that are controlling most of it day to day, that we're the consumers, we're the ones making the purchasing choices. You know, you would think that that would mean something, that that would give us some kind of um balance in this
Hmm.
society, in our country, in our economy. And yet, here we are.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things you bring up too, I want to go back to your point about a lot of folks are freezing up about, where they give their money. Oh, you know, even folks who have money are feeling a little bit like strapped, like they need to pull back on giving or whatever it is. I cannot agree more when you say that now is the time to lean in further. And I think one of the things that really got me thinking, I'm so proud of her for saying this, um at an award ceremony, I think it was the Grammys, that Billie Eilish, when she was accepting the award, looked at multiple people in the audience, multiple billionaires in the face and said, "Look, a lot of y'all are richer than me, and I'm giving," I think it was like she pledged 35% or something of her income, which, like, even still, right, the case could be made to push it a little bit further. But, like, but that's still a great perspective, which is like she's a millionaire. She's worth
Yep.
quite money, but still a drop in the bucket compared to so many other people who have enormous wealth who are giving 3% and 6%.
Totally.
And
Totally.
here's the reality. I think one of the things that you also brought up too that really resonated with me is that we have to start putting faces to the people who are suffering. And I think about this all the time, that the privilege that separates the ultra privileged, the wealthy, from being inspired to give more is really not having to look at the faces of the people who are suffering, the children who are hungry and underfed, the children who, like, the houses that they have to live in, the mothers who are working 2 to 3 jobs, and the impact that their kids feel when their moms can't be around because they have to work so much. It's such a trickle down complex situation. And I think the convenience that wealthy people have, including myself, right? Like, it's not even just like the ultra wealthy, like we all have a certain level of privilege, right?
A
Is that
100%.
we have to look at the faces of the people who are suffering, who we could help immediately
A
if there was
100%.
just a little bit more in the pot to give, right? And I think about this, I'm not kidding, I think every single day.
Yeah. I do too. It's about proximity, right? And people say it, but it goes both directions. Like when you're raising and your kids are going to college and stuff, and like people talk about the proximity to wealth, it helps you get closer to being wealthier. Also, the proximity to poverty is right there as well. And then there's that proximity to it's out of your purview. I have to get out of my house and go and drive to see what we're supporting every day because it's not, if I wanted to, I could live in a little sphere and say, you know, as long as my little world is doing well, I'm good. The reality is we all have to think about community beyond our sphere. Community is everyone. We are there is humanity in all of us, and every human being's life has a value. And again, I go back to this all the time. I have a story about my mother-in-law. One time we were driving, and I always give money to the unhoused. And my dad was very much like this. And she was like, "Why do you do that? They're going to just spend it on alcohol or something." And I said to her, "I don't care. Why do you care? Maybe they have gone through something in their life that I would not have recovered from either. And if that helps them forget or get through the pain, what does it hurt me?
Yeah.
I don't know. We all don't know. We were all built and wired innately different. So we have got to work on our empathy and compassion for people when we don't know their stories and we don't know. Had I gone through that, maybe I wouldn't have survived it either, really. Maybe I wouldn't have been able to move on. I have that with my own sister. We'll talk about that later, but I think about all the time our levels of resilience and our levels of coping. Some of us have and are wired differently. And that is very real in this world. And so we've got to have more compassion. And then I'll say to you, so I always used to give money. One of my proudest moments as a mother was getting into my son's car after he went off to college. And I opened the glove box, my husband and I, and there were a stack of dollar bills. I just cried. I was like, he gets it, you know? And I asked him, I called him, I said, honey, I found you have like 13 ones in your car. And this is a college kid who always loves to go out to eat, you
Yeah.
know, any cash he has, he's, using. And I go, but you didn't take it with you. He goes, of course not. He's like, I just hope you and dad give it out if you see somebody and then replenish it. And I was like, that's beautiful. And I'm like, did you do that with your friends in high school? Did they see you do that? He goes, oh yeah, everybody knew. And then they would throw dollars in too. And I just thought that is it. That is what we need, is this next generation to be more empathetic, because my kids are growing up with more than I had. And they have to remember there are so many people in this world that didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. It is so beautiful. And it's also a testament to breaking generational cycles
Mm-hmm.
and the complexity of that, because you should be so proud of yourself for like finding a path forward to do things and achieve things and create a reality that perhaps your parents couldn't or were limited to around, right?
Yes.
For whatever reason. And
Yep.
and and there's only, I always say this about my own mom, is like it, you can only achieve so much in a lifetime, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the pressure to break cycles from her parents, it's like and she did. But like he's going to be perfect, you know what I mean? Like we're all working with different coping mechanisms. There's only so much some people can do in terms of like achieving something new that
Mm-hmm.
generations before them have not. And I think about this regularly. And I just had a conversation with a girlfriend about this yesterday because she's also a first gen college grad.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, you know, I'm struggling. I said, but you have to take a moment to be proud because your kids are seeing a life modeled for them that is so different than what you had. And like,
Yep.
it's so easy to get caught up in but I want to do more. I still want to accomplish more. Like, how can I be better? And I was like, that weight of setting a model for your kids around different belief systems or even just an idea of like self-belief, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can do this, like the world is your oyster and you can get as much as you want to, creating different kind of possibilities around empathy and understanding the world around them, like that's all big work. It's so big.
Big.
The
It
weight of
is.
it is also, however, like how do you help them understand everything that was broken before them, right? Like all of those ceilings that were like crashed through for them to get to have this reality. I think about it every day with my son and I'm like, our childhoods are so different. And,
Yes.
and his understanding of what's possible is so wildly different than mine. And we're not talking 100 years, like it's only like 30
100%.
something years difference.
Think about it. A woman couldn't purchase a home without her husband's signature until 1974. That is not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
When you think about how long it takes to build generational wealth and stuff, like it, it is not that much time.
No, no. I think it's really easy in America to forget. And maybe this is just part of the DNA of being American. It's like we're like young and energetic and we
Yep.
haven't seen a full cycle of what it means to be a country and to see things fall apart and have to rebuild. And but like it's really easy in America to forget that our society, our system as it stands is really just a baby.
It is.
Not that much time has passed between now and anything in this country.
Yeah. And we forget that like we were making strides. And while we were making strides, there was a significant portion of our population that was suffering and that still suffer along the way, right? We get so proud of where we are, but we did that on the backs of Native Americans and Black people for decades.
Yeah.
And women were pushed to the side. And now what we see is the more any of these people rise, the more uncomfortable we get,
Yeah.
and we're going to sooner than later, I think, understand very quickly how that destruction can happen so quickly and how hard it's going to be to regain that momentum. We're
Yeah.
about, I think, to hit that blip in
I
the
agree.
radar,
I was
and it will, I think, unfortunately, the same people who suffer are the same people who end up paying the most. And I hope more eyes are open.
I agree. I was just having this conversation with my boyfriend last night, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because he was like, how we were talking about how corporations currently, like, there's inflation, right? But like, it's not real for the most part. Like oil
Mm-hmm.
companies are raking in higher profits than ever right now during this crisis. And so, like, do gas prices really have to be this high? Or
Mm-hmm.
and we think about the cost of goods, and it's like then you also see a headline on LinkedIn where it's like the CEO of company is taking home the biggest salary ever. And it's like, okay, but so then why are prices higher? Like, I don't understand.
Because that top 1% needs more and more and more. It's
More and
never
more and more.
enough.
And so he was like, corporate greed seems to be out of hand more than ever. And I wonder what the solution is to it. And I said, oh, I don't I don't know that there's going to be a course correction for any of this at this point. But we have to get over as Americans the fact that every major country, every major world power has crumbled and has had to get back up. You think about the history of Italy, of France, of Germany, and of course, during all these periods, and it's not even 100 years ago. And now we're like, oh, look, how many people are getting married in Italy? Like Germany's
Yeah.
a cool place to visit.
Yeah.
Warsaw's on like these lists
And they're
of like,
becoming more progressive.
yeah. And so I think that it's easy to feel like this is catastrophic because it is. It is catastrophic. However, people are resilient. Women are resilient. And along the way, we have to help each other and we have to find connection in our communities. We have to help make it easier day to day through whatever this is, however, this is all playing it out. Like, we need to make sure that at a minimum, we're taking care of our people because our government will not at this point.
Yep.
And that's really what it comes down to is like we have to take matters into our own hands. And I think that that's why the Women's Foundation is such a compelling organization to be a part of, because to your point, it's a community organization. So there's a bit less accountability in terms of what from a federal standpoint,
Yep.
like what can happen. And we need more of that in this world right
Mm-hmm.
now. Like,
Yes.
that's how you subvert. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what subversion looks like is and it's with and a lot of it is through money. A lot of it is through action too, but a lot of it is through money.
Yep. I completely agree.
I want to talk about something that we touched on really briefly, but I
Mm-hmm.
find to be such a fascinating part of your story and deeply inspiring. You took a 5-year break to be a full-time mother before re-entering the workforce. And as somebody who works in I have a recruiting firm. I'm the partner of a recruiting firm. I have done this for 15 years, helped people get jobs. And part of that is having conversations with my clients who have ranged from a Fortune 500 to small businesses about, what they look for, what their criteria is for people, what their red flags are in
Mhm.
candidates and such. And something that has been very alarming to me recently is this trend of employers wondering, well, what's the gap about? Like, I don't know if
Mhm.
somebody can come back from, oh, they just had a baby. Well, the ramp up is going to be,
Mhm.
a few years for them to fully reenter the workforce. Like, there's actual conversation, and I've been hearing it, unfortunately, from women hiring managers too. So it's
Yep.
not just men. But
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of fear for everyone, but especially women who are in the workforce and faced with these choices, which is it's increasingly unsustainable to have children or have caretaking responsibilities and make enough money to justify outsourcing that and frankly taking a hit at your mental health, I think, for a lot of people while doing it, right? Like, so it's like,
Mhm.
do I work really hard and constantly feel like I'm not doing enough and use a significant portion of my salary to outsource my caretaking, or do I opt out of the workforce for a bit to maintain some semblance of sanity and be present for my family, and what kind of impact will that have on my career? And I think so many women would find some hope in your story. What was that decision like for you?
Yeah, gosh, thank you. It was totally unplanned and unexpected how this rolled out. So I, at the time, was working for a really large international construction company, and I was the head of. I was a revenue strategist and oversaw North America. And so when I got pregnant, my husband and I had been trying for a while. I thought I would just like get pregnant because my mom got pregnant on birth control with all three of us girls.
Same.
Yep.
My
I
mom's
was like, I'm going to be so fertile. And then my baby sister got pregnant at 19 on birth control. And I was like, this should not be a problem.
yeah.
And, but it ended up taking longer than I had thought. And so, at my job, I was offered this promotion, September, October promotion. You can do the work. You don't start getting paid until January to the new fiscal year at that time. And I was like, okay, I was also 31,
Yeah.
and I I hadn't learned how to navigate and maneuver the system. And I also thought I had moved up pretty quickly from a staff accountant to this person in a few years. And so I was a bit naive. And once I got pregnant, I was happened to be taking a call. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, because I had a call in Paris. That's where our home office was. And so I was in my office and I'm like getting sick into my wastebasket. And my boss happens to open the door, who my VP was a really wonderful man from Canada. And his eyes got so big, like, I think he thought I was hungover. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to tell him sooner than I had hoped. Right. So I tell him, hey, I'm not hungover, just so you know, I'm pregnant. And he was like, this is wonderful. I'm happy for you. And this is going to not go well. And I was like, okay, why? He went and told our president, and he said, because this happened in kind of like October-ish, I cannot believe she accepted a promotion knowing she wanted to have children. Mm-hmm. And it came back to me, and my boss was like, hey, just FYI, you need to brace yourself for a change in attitude here, because this is what our president said. And had I known more, I would have just taken him to the cleaners, honestly. Um, but I didn't know. And I wasn't educated. And I was also a little bit naive also, because I grew up in a family that was really progressive. And my dad and my mom were always just like, you belong in any room you're in. You just like this inherent confidence and being like, you deserve it. You make no excuses for being a woman. Like, you are
Yeah.
a woman and you have a lot to offer.
That's so
And
beautiful.
like, yeah, both of my parents were just like, you never apologize. Make sure your voice is heard. And so I just thought everybody thought that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I, of course, had a couple of experiences along the line. Like in seventh grade, my teacher pulled my parents in and said, I don't think Renee should be hanging out with the girls she's hanging out with. She's really smart and they're going to, you know, and they were shallow and blah, blah, blah. And I had told my dad that he had told me this. And then I thought he was just a chauvinistic pig. And my parents are going in for parent teacher conference. And the guy says this, the teacher says this to my dad. My dad goes, well, my daughter just thinks you're a chauvinistic pig. And he goes, and my
I
dad said
love
it.
your
And
dad.
yeah, he goes, and my dad said, and it's none of your concern. Our daughter gets great grades. We
Yeah.
like her friends. We don't need parenting tips from you.
Yeah, like
And
who are you to like insert yourself into anyone's social circle unless there's
yeah,
like a
like
clear
real
safety
trouble.
risk or something.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
no. And my parents were like, don't worry, she's got it. You don't need to worry about her. And then I went into the next day and he apologized to me. He's like, I'm so sorry. And, your dad made it very clear what you think of me. And I was like, I do. And, you know,
Take it down.
this is like, this is facts. And
Yeah.
so my dad was always like, no man tells you, and so,
Yeah.
and my mom and dad just supported it. So when this happened, I was like, wow. And I started to notice like significant attitude shift. There was this like at one point I was building this entire presentation for this international conference we always did, and he was throwing my papers up in the air and cussing at me and behaving
Like a child.
like a child that was mad that he didn't get the person he wanted in a role and I didn't make a different choice. Like I gave you this opportunity and then you went and got pregnant, like attitude. And I was like, this is unacceptable. And I had always thought I would just be a career person. Like, this is the way it is. And I never felt that innate feeling of like I was meant to be a mother. That was just never who I was. And I remember when I got pregnant, my whole family was like, you're having a kid? What?
Mine too.
Yeah,
My mom
I
was
was like, what's so weird about this? I'm like,
like, this is so funny.
yes.
I remember because my husband and I, my ex-husband and I, we were together for 9 years before we got pregnant. And I similarly, I mean, like there was like my mom got pregnant with me on birth control, but then like my brother and my sister right away. But then my brother, she had some trouble because she had endometriosis, and
Mm-hmm.
I had like symptoms of endometriosis, and you have to go through like a whole surgery to get properly diagnosed. But that's a whole other conversation around women's health. But I just assumed that I was like, well, if I didn't, like I had been sexually active for quite some time.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been pregnant, therefore, like, maybe it's not that easy for me to get pregnant. And then when we got pregnant, it was a surprise. And I remember calling my mom, and she was like dead silent. And she was like, you?
Yeah.
It's like,
You're
no,
like,
I'm calling on behalf of my sister. Yes, me. Yeah, baby.
oh my God. It totally like people are shocked. You're like, and I remember telling my answer, I'm like, I know this is new, that I've actually planned this and worked towards it, where most of the women in my family was like, oh no, like, and it's just also generational and cultural and all the things. And I was like, no, like I wanted to go to college and own a home and have a marriage and like, and then, they're like, oh, we just kind of figured you would. And I'm like, and by the way, 32 is a great age to have a child.
Same, I was 31.
I was like, this is so odd that I'm getting this feedback. So I was like, okay, I also was like, well, I'll have the baby and then I'll go back to work. And work got really, really challenging. And before I left, my boss told me he was going to be retiring and I would be getting a new boss when I came back from maternity leave. And he also told me that my boss was trying to cut me on my bonus and I would not get it. And
Whoa.
ultimately, I had an amazing boss who took it out of his own operational budget to make sure I had my full bonus because I had earned it. And I came back after a few months, and I have to tell you, being at home, I was like, this is pretty good. And I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And then my job was really stressful anyway. But when I went back, I had a new boss and he was from Romania and he didn't want to be in the Denver office. He wanted to be in our Baltimore office.
Hmm.
And so I had a choice of either moving my whole family to Baltimore or being there 2 weeks out of the month. I just had a newborn. I can't be there 2 weeks
50%
out
of
of
the
the month.
time. Yeah.
So they were essentially, I think, moving me out of my job because they knew I wasn't going to make either choice. And so I ended up leaving and staying home for 5 years. I would tell you it ended up being longer than I thought it would be because I know that this seems odd being a grown woman. But I ended up getting pregnant really quickly with my daughter, much faster than I had planned. We all know how it works. I don't know why I was so shocked when I got pregnant, but I
No,
was.
no, let's pause for a moment. Here's the thing about women's health. It, like, first of all, we do know roughly how it works, but like, there's even doctors who don't know all the way how it works. And then, second, so many women I know have gotten pregnant. Like, my sister got pregnant 2 months after she had
Yes,
her first. And like, it happens. There's no
it
shame
does.
around it. It's okay. Like, we're all just.
It does happen, but I was like devastated. And my poor daughter was like, were you so happy when you found out you're pregnant? I'm like, no, no, I wasn't, girl.
Yeah.
I was like not ready. And I wanted to go back to work at that point. And then I couldn't. And again, to your point, nobody's going to hire a woman pregnant, like that was not happening in 2005. And so I ended up being at home. And then when I wanted to go back to work, it was 2008, 9,
Oof.
and the recession, and it was painful. But during that time, while I was home, I did some volunteer work for small grassroots nonprofit. And I learned that I really liked building those relationships. I always loved my friendships and they came easy in the relationships, but I never thought about it in a career setting. How do you leverage that for a career outside of building social capital, And
Mhm.
then I would ask for money. And I thought to myself, this is so easy because what a gift I'm giving you to support something you care about,
Yes.
And so I told my husband, I go, when I go back to work, I think I'm going to change my career. And he was like, what? I'm like, yes, we're going to have to do a lifestyle change because I'm literally making a tenth of what I made in my corporate career. And he was like, all right. And he was so supportive. And he's like, I have no doubt that you'll be able to climb that ladder quickly. You did in the corporate world, and that's just your gift. And so I couldn't get a job because at the time people asked your salary history. And when I put down 6 figures and then I'm going to work for a job that I'm going to make $28,000 a year at, people are like, there's just no way that you really are doing this.
Yeah, you're gonna bail. Like, yeah,
You're gonna
you're gonna hate it immediately. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, no, this is a conscious decision. Like,
Yeah.
I'm shifting careers. So finally, I got a part-time special events coordinator job in the nonprofit worlds. And I was there for 2.5 years. Then I went to the Women's Foundation and yada, yada. But I will tell you, two of the things that were really hard for me. One was while I was home, and this is like no judgment for people that feel filled up staying at home. Like, that's beautiful. But I lost my sense of self. And I was looking to my husband to fill me up all the time. And so that caused friction in our marriage because he married a really independent woman who had a whole life and drive and this and that. And, and all of a sudden I was like, who am I beyond a mom? And I needed more. And I needed a separate self. Like all of those things are me, but I needed something else. And so I lost confidence in myself. And I think it really showed in my interviews sometimes.
Yeah.
That like I wasn't as fully confident in my own being. So maybe they weren't as confident in my direction and want for that.
Mm-hmm.
But also it was like this massive hill I had to get up and over around why the gap? Why this gap? Like, and then that fed my lack of confidence. It was like I was convincing people that, and it was how my bigger boss treated me, that the minute I got pregnant, I no longer could think strategically or act or math.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it was like this does not make me a lesser strategic partner to you or a lesser business savvy professional. As a matter of fact, I learned to do more with less time,
Yeah.
and I
You
became
really
more
do.
efficient and
Yeah.
strategic and balanced in a way that I think that threatened them. That because when I worked, it looked differently now. And it was, instead of being applauded, it was challenged.
Always.
Always.
I remember in 2000, I mean, this wasn't even that long ago. It was more recent than what your timing. 2015, 2016. I worked for a 96% women company. It was women owned, We Bank certified, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember our EVP coming into the office one day. Our entire sales team was women except for like one. And one woman had just announced she was getting pregnant. One woman had just announced she was getting married. I knew privately that I had some friends who were trying and going through IVF and like crying on my shoulder on our lunch break because the IVF had failed. Like big stuff. And women, all, by the way, who were all in their 30s and 40s. And our EVP comes in, who was single,
Mm-hmm.
kids, had a different pair of Valentinos on every week, was like, y'all need to stop getting pregnant. And I
Oh,
was like, are we fucking kidding right now? Are we like, we will put on our marketing that we're women owned and like we're mostly women and all this stuff. And it was like, and then when I decided that we were moving to Denver, when Jacob and I decided to make the move from Denver, my boss, who was like an echelon below our EVP, also a woman, single, had been a stepmom and really is like, was very present in her family's life, but was going through divorce. So like, there were probably some other things that were informing kind of where she was
mm-hmm.
mentally and emotionally around it. But she looked at me, I remember, like across the desk and was like, Danielle, if you want to move to Denver with your husband and have a family, that's your choice. But if you want a career, I highly suggest that you rethink that. And I was
Wow.
like, I didn't I didn't say I was gonna go like live in the bush. Like, like Denver's a city too. And also I can have a family and a career.
Yeah.
Granted, it's difficult,
Yeah. But all those things can happen at one time.
Yeah. And gosh, that was
Yes.
only 10 years ago. That was only 10 years ago.
It's wild. But I think that that's where women have to do better. When I went back to work, I worked for a nonprofit run by and mainly women. And I couldn't believe when I had asked for something and I told them, look, I have to support my boss who was going through a lot. I had given up a lot of my personal time and paid for nannies so I could support her because she was going through and do her work. And I asked for a raise and I told them that I did all this stuff. And they're like, that's a personal problem. And I thought to myself, wow. And so I think we have got to, as women, challenge how we think about this and also hold each other accountable to, hey, This is the problem. We cannot be behaving that way. And I think one of the things that I think as somebody who's 52 years old and getting on the older edge of people in the career space, I can't hold that feeling of, well, I had to go through that.
Yeah.
Therefore, you are.
Yep.
I have to use my experience as education to make myself a better leader, but also use my experience to help the younger generation also understand where we've come from. So they also have to give a little bit of grace too, because they don't know in other worlds, especially in our sector, where they can't come in and be like, this is how I want it to work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have great admiration for that and frustration with that.
Yeah. You're
It's
like
both of
trying to
those
come at
things.
this cross section with like where
Yes.
you've been and where you want to go and like how do you get there? Because it doesn't just happen overnight. Like
Yep.
it's a huge ethos shift that
Yes.
takes time to move through.
Yep. And by the way, your way probably isn't perfect either. So there's like everybody's got to be a little bit more open to learning to it with and from other people.
Agreed. And I also think to your point, challenging the things that didn't serve us as women, that don't serve us as women.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, yeah, it's systemic. Yes, ideally, we can make, like in the ideal world, every company, even if especially if we're a leader in that company, can have, ample maternity leave or parental support and the best benefit. Like
Mm-hmm.
all these material things that, like, if we could create our perfect world, this is what it would look like. But sometimes it also looks like, and I think more often it looks like encouraging people and encouraging women to just speak their truth. Like I just had a conversation with a candidate who is in her 40s and also took a motherhood gap. And she started going down this having to explain herself. And I paused her. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. First of all, you're a grown woman. This is your career. You do not have to explain to me why you needed time off. Period. Look at the world around us. Don't we all need time off? Like, even if we weren't mothers, even if we weren't caretakers, like, couldn't we all benefit from a gap from being like
Yes.
on the hamster wheel?
Yes.
Please, there are a million reasons why you have a reason to take a gap, and you do not owe that explanation to me. So I said to her, I said, frankly, you don't owe that explanation to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's your life. You're the boss here.
Yep.
And if somebody can't get down with that, you get to decide whether you want to work for that company. But like, she was like, thank you so much for saying that. Like, I really needed to hear that. And you know what? I'm just going to reiterate that to everybody.
Yep.
Because to your point, that confidence, sometimes it just takes the confidence to show up and be like, you're a corporation. I don't know an explanation to you about my private choices.
No.
Do you
And do
want me to
you
work for you or do you not?
exactly? And also based on your skill set, it's, I get it. You take a gap and you're in the tech space. You do have to work hard to keep up with what's happening in those space. And you can educate yourself on that. Quite frankly, in most roles, you taking a gap did not diminish your ability to think and perform.
Agreed.
And I wish more men had to take gaps so they'd be more empathetic to the judgment that comes from making a choice to care for a child you brought into this world.
It's like the most important work
Yep.
that anyone will do is
That
raise
is
human.
And it's the hardest work.
It is.
I mean, that's why I have so much like pride for women that can do it, because I could not. And I tell my kids that, I'm like, look, they're like, Mom, I'm like, be offended. I don't care. But you have no idea how hard that work is. It is the most thankless work on the planet. You are feeling and giving everything to people who don't appreciate you fully. Like, it's rough, It
is. But like, it's it's also like when we look at everything that is
Mhm.
broken with society at the moment, right? The things, the pain, the disconnection, the the gaps in community building, the isolation, it all comes down to like kind of diluted humanity.
Yep.
Like it's all being like it's like tech is filling in these gaps where family used to and like human connection and it's like at the end of the day, I think it's so easy to forget that literally the purpose of living is being human. Like, it's not work, it's not any of this, and so, like, when we bring other people into this world, when we bring little people into this world, like, that's the tallest order for
Yeah.
us, is to teach them how to be a human and show them and to show them how to be a human in
Yep.
a world that is increasingly less human. And so,
Absolutely.
like, it's so existential and, like, philosophical, and it's like, that's why it's hard work because you have to boil that down into every choice you make every day.
Yep.
And when you're in it, you know, with your kids, which is so brutal, I always tell all of my friends, you will not really feel like yourself. Don't be hard on yourself for not feeling your essence for like
Yep.
3 years. Like a year and a half for me, I blacked it out. It was like hellish because it was also during COVID and we were especially isolated. I gave birth to my son the week that we went on lockdown. Until he was 18, I swear it was like he hit 18 months and I was like, "Oh my god, I think I recognize that person in the mirror a little bit. Where is she?"
It's
And then
true.
by 3 years is when I was like, "Oh, someone, like, lit the fire again inside of me.
Mhm.
There it is."
Yep.
To expect that you could do it all and feel like yourself
Mhm.
any sooner than that is, like, a really high bar to set, I think, as a mom and a woman, and it's a lot I think women feel that pressure, though.
Yep. They do. We absolutely feel it.
It's I try to just show up for anyone I know in my life who is becoming a parent for the first, second, third time, and just remind them, like, "You've showed up. You show up for your kids. You like, it doesn't matter if the laundry is folded. It doesn't matter if you're being an A plus employee. Like,
Yeah.
did you get through the day? That's a win."
Yep.
And
100%. And I have to tell you, like, being able to be in a leadership role at the foundation in a couple of different ways and have people that work for me have children, it really was a gift to be able to give them an experience from a working mom perspective that I didn't get, you know? I'm like, I want to create a space for you that gives you this experience to be both a mother and a professional in a way that fills you up and validates you,
yeah,
um, that I did not have. Instead of going, well, I didn't have that support, so
yeah.
move forward, you know? And
Move
so I think,
forward under the weight of the perceived deficit, which is,
yep,
like, always what that feels like, is, like, I'm
yes,
never going to be doing enough.
yes, you're never going to be doing enough. And also, as a mom, the pressure we feel to be so great at it and the failure that we put on ourselves when we don't do something perfect or right. Like, my God, no, there is not a manual. You cannot read enough books. You shouldn't read all the books, quite frankly.
Agreed.
Like, you shouldn't. Like, it
Or
drives
the
you crazy.
Instagram accounts or, like, social I
Let
feel
it
like
go.
yeah,
It puts more pressure on you. And it's nice to be able to reinforce with them that, like, you're a great mom. And also, you're taking yourself too seriously.
yes.
Like, it is not this serious.
It's such a gift that
Yeah.
you are able to do that for
Yeah.
your team.
Yeah. And I,
And I
you know,
imagine
like,
maybe heals a little bit of you too.
oh, it does because, or I like these, I had recently one of my employees who experienced something with their child and she was so concerned. And I laughed. She's like, why are you laughing? I go, because you will realize it is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And you are putting so much energy and concern and worry into something that ultimately you're going to look back on and be like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Come on. You know, it isn't that serious. And there are so many more things as your kid gets older that you're like, this actually is life changing. This could be a life changing challenge.
Yeah.
This, this, this is not.
Yeah. I so my boyfriend's son is a month younger than my son.
Hmm.
They're like exactly the same age, basically. And when we're in it, it can feel so big because, like, I have an only child. He
Yep.
has an only child. And when you get the boys together, when they're not accustomed to like having like any kid around for any experience, extended amount of time, like an all day play date, like doesn't typically happen.
Yep.
Um, big feelings come up and they get a little like rambunctious, like, they're boys.
Hmm.
Beyond being boys, they're kids, like they're kids with other kids. And after they like go to bed and we're like sitting there and we're talking, I say this to him and we talk about it pretty regularly. I'm like, this is like, let's not forget like the playfulness and the innocence and how little these things are right now. Like, yes, how we like lay these foundations are important, but in 5 years, it's gonna be like my friend, you know, my friend has a phone and showed me something inappropriate, or somebody's bullying me, or like in 10 years it's going to be maybe they got into a car accident for the first,
Yep.
or they got, like, the problems get, to your point,
Bigger.
big quick. And that's just like, this is just like a sweet little bubble right now.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
At 6 years old, it's like,
Oh, I love
it's
that
not
age.
that serious, you
No.
know? So I know that this is like a pivot, but it's still very family oriented because I think one of the things that you and I really share from an ethos perspective, and it obviously translates into the work that you do professionally and any of the work that I do alongside and with the Women's Foundation, um, is families, right? And I think especially the women in your family, I know that last year you lost your mom and that was so devastating. I think I saw you very shortly after that. And then I saw you shortly before. In fact, the last time I think I saw you was December. And it was shortly before you lost your sister. And I remember thinking this time last year, like, I thought of you so much because I thought, oh my gosh, Renee is stepping into the CEO role and she just had a devastating loss of someone that you have always spoken so highly of, and you just have this effusive love for, and clearly has made such an impact on who you are today. You saying how your parents are just like so progressive and feminist, and they're like, you're gonna go do whatever you want, Renee. That's huge. And I remember having like that really touching me every time you talked about your mom and thinking to myself like, wow, what a serious, like, what a huge season of change. And then to hear of your sister, like, I cried because, like, I can't imagine, like, having to navigate grief of that weight while also doing what you do and showing up for for your kids and your husband and your people, like, and I'm just so honored that you're open to talking about this because I think so many people right now are struggling to sit in their grief and whatever and however it's showing up because our society is very, um, things like motherhood and grief and caretaking. We don't want to have to deal with that. Like, please.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people don't know how to show up in their grief. And I'm curious to hear how you're doing today and how you're giving yourself grace to show up as your whole self in this really difficult and challenging time.
Thank you for asking. Um, Honestly, sometimes I don't know if I give myself enough grace right now because most of the time I feel like I'm surviving. And I'm trying to, and I haven't yet made peace with the fact that surviving sometimes is like the most honest thing I can offer. You know, the timing of losing my mom, stepping into this job, this administration, the magnitude of our work during this kind of administration is elevated and is so critical and so important, is really hard to reconcile, and it doesn't matter. Like, grief just comes, you know? Um, I think, like, when I'm talking, sometimes it could be in the middle of the night, like it was last night, or it can be in the middle of a sentence when I find myself like struck. And it's hard because I feel like there is something innately in me, Elle, that has changed and shifted. And that is, as somebody who's, as you said, I've always felt like a really happy person and joyful, and the world has a lot of beautiful things to offer. And I love people and I love relationships, and I feed off of that energy. And I know people feed off of my energy. So in being a CEO and a leader, I want to be the energy that people can feed off of and inspire and get it motivated to do something. And I really feel like that piece of me has been strained. Losing my mom because she was really sick was something that I felt like I could prepare myself more, a little bit more. And she was older. She was still young. She was only 72, when I lost her. But you also tell yourself, like, she's been sick and she's ill and suffering, and you've had time and you've gotten to love that person so much. But losing my sister, that one really broke something in me that I don't think has a name. Not that I've come up with. That has been a very different kind of grief. It has been jarring.
I can only imagine.
It's so deep. Losing that person that has like that shared origin with you, right? Has those shared memories, ideas and memories of the same rooms where things happen, the voice, knows a version of you that nobody else is going to know, and sees you in a different way than other people see you. And then the way she died was really hard. She died of through a battle of alcoholism and depression. And
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But, being a fixer, and I am the eldest daughter in every definition of that word, it's been really hard. Losing my mom and seeing how it impacted my dad and my sister, because they share similar challenges. And then feeling I could never fully grieve my mom because I was worried and taken care of. And that was occupying me.
Yeah.
And then to lose my sister. And then I just had my mom's 1-year anniversary. And I told my dad that I feel like I've not been able to fully grieve my mother and the magnitude of losing your mom, who, for me, no matter how bad things were, her voice or her presence, I just knew would be okay, because there was nothing that grave, and
which is such a beautiful relationship to have with your mom.
It is, I'll just share this one story. So my mom had cerebellar ataxia in the crest, which is all the symptoms of MS and ALS.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So in the end, she couldn't speak, she couldn't write, she couldn't walk, she couldn't really feed herself. And it was probably, I don't know, it was during my process of applying for this job. And it was a big deal for me, because if I didn't get it, I would have to leave the work. I wouldn't have to, but I would. leave the work that I had devoted so much of my life to that aligns with everything that I am as a person. And I was really stressed and nervous and uneasy. And then I was going through a lot with my sister, who we were working through detox and rehabs. And I couldn't really share with my mom everything because I didn't want her to become more stressed. And my mom didn't want to acknowledge that she was dying. And so one day I just laid on her lap. Can I just lay on your lap? And I did. And my mom liked me to be around because I was always so joyful. And so, but I just couldn't find that joy at that moment. And I laid on her lap and I cried so hard. And it just came undone around everything that I was carrying. And she just like rubbed my head with her her long nails.
Yeah.
And when I got up, I felt so relieved of all the pressure.
Yeah.
And she sent me a note. She could like had a little fingernail that she could text.
Yeah.
And she said, thank you for letting me be your mom. And I knew what she meant because we were all caring for her and she had lost, I think she thought she lost the ability to be our mom. But like, just that was the biggest gift of her being my mom.
A
And
mother's love is like a superpower, you know?
it is. And I just said I needed it so much. And then with my sister, yesterday it went out that I got awarded a Women of Distinction, and that was great.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. But it made me miss my sister so much because nobody celebrated me like she did or knew everything I had gone through to get to this place. She knows everything. And nobody else does like that. And so her celebration and like getting to share that with her was always really special, you know? And I just knew that was always like a win for both of us.
Like she felt that joy as much as you did.
100%.
That's like
And
my sister and I too. Like,
yeah,
my best, best, best.
yeah. The joy is with them. And so it's just been hard to show up with grace, or like show that my grace is not necessarily peace,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think our society is uncomfortable with grief and wants us to show and walk into a room like we're okay, because it's so uncomfortable, or they want to hear that I'm going to be fine, so that makes them feel better. But the reality is that I am just surviving it, and I'm trying to be a really good leader. But I also think that means being a leader who can say, you know what, today's not my best day. Or I didn't respond to you. And I've already done this with my staff in a couple of different times where I've responded in a way that they didn't deserve. And I just said, look, I want to recognize that I responded in a way that you didn't deserve. And I am raw right now. And I'm also doing my best. It's all I can do. I am not who I was a year ago. And
Understandably so.
I don't think I'm supposed to be. And I'm trying to remind myself of that. It's hard when you want to the leaders that they hired, they're not getting that a year later. And that's hard for me.
Yes. And what a gift, though. Because but the fact that they're not getting the same person that you were a year ago, because you, by showing up as somebody who is holding this grief and being honest about it, you're giving the people around you the permission to also grieve whatever it is that they're grieving, and to show up even if they're not grieving now. We lose people along the way. Inevitably, we will all lose people who are so important to us. And what a gift for them to have seen such a fierce, beautiful, empathetic leader at any point in their career show up and say, I am aware of my grief. I'm not going to hide it. And I might be an imperfect leader sometimes, but this is how I repair. It's like parenting, really. It's not
Yeah,
that we're messing up. Like
that's
that's
exactly it.
it's the aware, and it's not being perfect because perfection doesn't exist. I've not experienced grief to this magnitude, but I have grieved my marriage. I've grieved my father, uh,
Yep.
who didn't pass, but who was leading a double life and was arrested in a federal investigation for it and went to prison and
Yes.
completely like crumbled our lives. And there was a lot that to unpack around that, and there was massive grief. And I just remember doing everything I possibly could to hide it and to suppress it, because how embarrassing to sit in grief, because like it's to it's to surrender. It's to surrender that you loved someone so hard and you can no longer enjoy their physical presence
It
the
is.
way that you used to.
And all those things that you talked about that you grieve, they are all significant griefs, right? It is a grief for what happened. It's a grief, that secondary grief of what you're not going to be able to experience with somebody you thought you would. And those things never go away, right? Even like your marriage, like you went into it with a different thought
Yeah.
and a feeling. And so you can go through the grieving process and you'll always grieve what you thought would have happened or your life would have looked like or what your son would have experienced.
Yes.
You know, those are real and those are personal. And even though it's a better decision, those things don't those things don't not exist,
Yeah.
you know? And the same with your dad. It is the grief of who you thought somebody was,
Yeah.
the grief of learning that nobody's perfect,
Yep.
and that grief of loss of relationship that is core to our beings.
Truly. Like my sister and I just this week. It was crazy because what my dad did was pretty heinous, and he's a very complicated person who is frankly unsafe for me to have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with, or my family. I s you know, we also were really close growing up, and he taught me so much, and one of the things he taught me was photography. Like, he had this old Volta that I was always so curious about, and he taught me how to use it, and I carried that camera with me to New York City, and I would have it on me, like, most of the time, and I would just take pictures all the time. I took a photography class in college my first semester. I was so stoked, and at one point, I got rid of it. I wish I hadn't, but and then it was 20 years before I revisited it, and my boyfriend also shoots film. People have always been like, "Danielle, you take great pictures, you take great pictures." It's always on my phone,
Yes, you
but I
do.
just like, "Thank you." And I thought, you know, I should get a film camera again. It's been 20 years. Like, it's always been one of my greatest passions, and the creative process is so much more fun for me, and let me get back to it. And I took out these stacks of photos and I was showing Wade, and like he was like, "You have such a great eye. Like, why don't you do this again?" And so I went and I traded in my expensive Sony that I never used because I just like love film, Like, so I got a Nikon F3, which was like such a fun camera. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And it just hit me last week that I was like I miss my dad.
Yes, you do.
Like, I miss him. I miss that dad who like taught me how to do those things and would engage my passions. And for all of the faults and complexities of my father that still enrage me to this day. Like, he was the parent who really, really believed in me and never made me feel like I was less than because I was a girl,
Mhm.
and that's hard. Like, there's a lot of complex grief there because,
Yeah.
it's like it's confusing, but people are complex. So anyway, I wrote it in my journal. That was
Mhm.
like all I wrote that day was, "I miss my dad." And it was the first time I'd, like, really given myself permission to say that, to myself in, like, maybe a decade. And my sister texted me, she was saying how, like, something was broken in her house. She was like, um, "If dad was still around, like, he would be here fixing it. I miss dad." And we both, like, had a moment of, like, to your point, like, having a sister who's been through all the stuff, like, feels that color and the weight and all the, like, grit of all the things you've been through, like, we didn't have
Mhm.
to explain why it was such a big deal to say, like, "I miss dad." But it's hard. It's, like, hard to because people have so many different ideas of what grief is and how you should process it and when you should get over it or how it should manifest in your life, and, like, that it's just it's not linear.
It isn't, it's not linear, and it never will go away, you know? Um, and I know they say with time and with time for my mom, it's lightened, but I still have those moments of deep pain, and I'm trying to learn how to connect with her in this, like, more spiritual world. Um, but that's the thing. I think you said something, and I try to tell my kids this all the time, and I tell people I work with because nothing is linear, nothing is binary, nothing is black and white. And one of my, I think my greatest gifts is recognizing that you can be two things at one time. The world can be two things. It can be 10 things at one time. In it, somebody's mistake or choice or whatever does not define everything about them. And we want people to give us grace. So oftentimes other people don't want to do that for other people. They want only this part of you can be true. And yes, there are some people like that, but that overshadow all the other things so much. But oftentimes that's just not the reality. And I always think, I tell my kids and I tell my friends, and I've reminded somebody just the other day of this who did something that I did not agree with. And he and I were meeting for the first time after 3 years. Um, it didn't change that I thought you were a good person. You did a horrible thing,
Mhm.
but I don't believe you are all of your mistake, right? Like you made a grave mistake, but you're not all, that doesn't define everything. So if you want this relationship and friendship, you have to go through the work of being real honest because you're not going to get the repair unless you take accountability
Yeah.
ever, you know? And but we have to give people the chance to do that. And I'm not talking about your dad because I don't know the scenario, but for the most part in this world, we have to give people a chance to come back from their mistake. Or also, when we think about the people we serve at the Women's Foundation, the stigma around a woman's choice put them in this position.
Mhm.
That is not true. You just happen to have money because you made a lot of the similar choices.
Yeah, it
And, and money masks it.
I was just gonna say, actually, the example you brought up about the booze. What if this unhoused person uses this money to buy booze? And it's like, well, are you gonna go to the liquor store this week?
Yeah.
Is anybody policing your choices?
Yes. It just,
What are you drinking for? You know?
yeah.
Like
My guess is you're coping or masking something as well. That maybe
Yeah,
you're masking something that was not nearly as tragic as this,
yeah, and
you
it's
know?
that's the humanity in us. I am so grateful that you have made the time to chat with me today, and I every time I talk to you, I feel so much hope because you do bring so much humanity to how you show up in this world. And I say this wholeheartedly. That is such a gift, Renee. Like, really, there's a reason why you're the leader of the Women's Foundation of Colorado. And I think the world of you. And when I think about the future of women, and I have my days where I feel really like what is the world going to look like in 5 years or 10 years? How much harder is it going to be? I think about you and your team and my community of women, and it makes me have some motivation to get after it,
Yeah, yeah.
to get through the day, to know that like it's gonna get better at some point,
Hmm.
like we're working
Yeah.
on it. And also it's a reminder that I still have privilege in this that I can use to help other people who have it even harder, and that is an imperative to the future we're trying to build.
Well, I want to thank you for just having me on and giving me the opportunity to share my experience, and also for asking such thoughtful and beautiful questions and making this a space where I could feel really safe to share. It is what you also bring, and it is your gift that allows people to be more vulnerable with you, I think, than maybe they would be with other people. And there's so much power in that. And you've always shown up for me and for the foundation and for the women in your sphere and so outside of your sphere in really beautiful ways. From the moment I met you, you've been showing up. No matter how complicated your life has been, you still find a way to show up. And there's so much to admire and aspire to in that. So thank you.
Thank you. That's like one of the sweetest things anyone's ever said to me. So thank you so
It's
much.
true. It's true, hun.
Well, I'm excited for all of the work that we will do together in the
Absolutely.
and also for our friendship.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you again for being on,
Of
and
course.
I'm excited to share this with the world.
Okay. Thank you, hun. Take care. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much for joining me for this intimate conversation on Not Like the Others. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. You can find links and information about everything we discussed today in the show notes. And if you want to continue the conversation, feel free to find me on Instagram at Not Like the Others Pod. Until next time, come find yourself in every story.